Hey YouTube, it's your girl Chic from Chic Say What, and I had to jump back on tonight to do another live because I've been getting a lot of comments and just different updates pertaining to our girl Chrystalin Karazin of the Pink Pill brand. Now, again, when I do a search on her channel or search for her channel, I don't see it come up still. But I have seen more content creators kind of out there defending her. So someone posted a comment on one of my videos with some information, pertaining to the matter that I wasn't privy to previously, or I don't know, maybe if this was some updates that came about since I did my last two videos. But before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I go live. Participate, drop your comments, and let's get the party started. So I had someone share some information with me that I found to be quite interesting. Let me see if I can get back. I mean, I've been getting so many comments pertaining to this matter, and I'm appreciative of the information because some of the information, was new to me. So this commenter says, "Hey, Chic, CK addressed everything in this live, and Mr. E came on too. Turns out he didn't actually say the N word, and black men embellished what happened." So now I'm really curious to know what was said during that clubhouse whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what you call what went down on the clubhouse, because I'm hearing, okay, he didn't say the N word, but before, a lot of people have saying, oh, well, he did say the N word, but this person, sent me this comment or shared this comment on one of my videos saying that he didn't actually say the N word. Black men are basically embellishing the story, exaggerating the situation. So I'm like, okay, now that makes a difference, because if he did not say it, then it kind of changes the whole narrative, right? Like either he said it or he didn't. Then I also seen something saying as though the person, or I guess it was a black guy who was the one who called in, and he knew Chrystalin or something like that. And he kind of was taunting Mr. E, trying to get a reaction out of him. And, Mr. E kind of fell for the bait and things went left then. So it's like I'm hearing now this conflicting information pertaining to what happened. I haven't seen anything out with a link or anything pertaining to an interview or anything Chrystalin may have done to address some things that have taken place. So I'm not quite sure as far as the person who made the comment or video, where she got the information from as far as Chrystalin and Mr. E addressing things in the live. So I don't know if she's referring to back, when everything popped off, them kind of addressing it, or if it was kind of something new that came about and Chrystalin addressed it then. So if anyone on here, if you're familiar with her or if you've heard of any updates, drop it in the comments, because I haven't seen Chrystalin make any new updates pertaining or speak out pertaining to this situation, I guess, since everything kind of popped off. I just been seeing just people, just various people, everyone having an opinion about what's been going on. And if they feel like it's a big deal or not. I'm actually seeing quite a few videos where, mostly from men, women, mostly from women, where they're like, okay, they're downplaying the idea, I guess, him using that N word. It's like, okay, well, Black men do far worse to Black women. Black women are mostly abused by Black men versus a white man. So, I mean, it's not that serious. So that's the temperament, that I've seen from some of the other content creators in regards to this matter. So I found that to be quite interesting. I had made a comment on another content creator in regards to this matter, and I felt like the person misunderstood my comment because I do not advocate or support. If Mr. E did say, the N word, I don't advocate for that, like that he takes an L for that. That was wrong. But what I said in my comment was that I felt like he said the word because it's a word that he was comfortable using. Even if it wasn't a word that he had used in a derogatory way towards someone directly, it was just a part of his vocabulary. However he used the word, but I felt like because he said it in the moment, it was something that he'd said before. So in that moment, when he said it again, it was like, oh snap, like he wasn't in an environment where, I guess, if he did say it, where it's almost like he wasn't in the comfort of his home saying it. It was like he was now on a public platform saying it to the world, and it was like, oops. So no, I mean, that's wrong. Like, he shouldn't be using it at all. But I just wanted to point out that I did not feel like, okay, in that moment, he was using it in a derogatory manner. It was the context in which it was used. And yes, it's bad that he used it, but I still believe that we can't ignore the context in which the word was used. We can't leave that part out. So because it was used in a context that wasn't him directly referring to someone or calling someone an N-word, like, I feel like it deserves for that to be considered and us to be open to hearing him out if he has an apology, versus say out of anger, he just outright called Chrystalin an N-word or called anybody an N-word. I just still feel that Mr. E and Chrystalin both deserve to be heard. I hope that they both soon come out and speak about the situation and what's been going on, because I think it would help to clear things up and not have so many people speculating what's going on right now, or even what went on or went down, because I'm just now, I'm hearing conflicting information about what happened in that Clubhouse live. Like, is it lies? Was the N word actually used? I mean, it's just like, if he didn't say it, like, how did this all just get blown up? And in the story that's going around is he said the N word. Like, if he didn't say it, if he didn't say that, where is Chrystalin at? Why wouldn't she be on her platform defending him, defending his name if he didn't say it, right? Like, it doesn't make sense if this isn't true. When there's lies being circulated around you or someone close to you, you're not going to just let it go on like that. You're going to come out and say, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. And to me, her silence is more so supporting that, okay, there may be truth to it, because why else would we not be hearing from her? So naturally, we're like, okay, well, since she's silent, it must have happened because she's not out defending herself for her man. So like I said, I don't know as far as where the person who commented on my video got that information from, as far as with Chrystalin and Mr. E kind of speaking out on the live, because she didn't mention like where the live was. She just talked about, that they spoke about it and he didn't actually say the N-word, and a black man or black men embellish, the story. And I was, just to hear that, I'm like, wow, this is somebody's whole life. So it would just be a horrible thing to know if it wasn't true, that this has gotten put out there, and it just paints both Chrystalin and Mr. E in a bad light. And who wants to be painted in a bad light? Like, nobody wants their name just put out there like that. Like, nobody wants like a bad light on their name. Like, you don't want lies out there about you, and your normal reaction is to defend yourself. And Chrystalin has such a large platform with over 100,000 subscribers. To me, it would only make sense that she would use her platform to defend herself. So it's like, where are you, Chrystalin? What's the truth? Is it true that he used the N-word on Clubhouse during your live? Did he apologize after he used it? What was your immediate response when he used it? Like, I think that it's time that we hear from Chrystalin, because only she can really speak on what happened on there, really her or anyone else who was on that live. And I'm not quite sure. I believe multiple people was on there, but I just know for sure it was her and Mr. E on there. And it's crickets. You just have everyone, people just formulating their own opinions, wondering kind of, okay, what happened? Yes, it did happen. She shouldn't have been messing with him anyway. Or, no, it didn't happen. People's just lying on him. It's like, we don't know. So it's, you just have all these different versions of what went down just floating around. And you're just left to wonder, like, okay, well, is it true or is it not? I hope not. I mean, I hope not. But her silence to me is saying, okay, there's got to be some truth to it, since she hasn't come out and said anything. So I would like to know, what's your thoughts on this? Have you, since, it's been about, I don't know when all this even went down. I first started speaking on it yesterday. Have you changed, any of you changed your opinion about the matter? Have you learned new information pertaining to the matter? Do you care to even learn any more information about the matter? Do you feel like, okay, well, they said he said it, so, I'm going with that, and he's trash and he can kick rocks? Or Are you like, well, no, I'm gonna reserve my opinion, wait till I hear from her to see if she can back whatever claims that are out there? You know, what's your stand? Are you kind of playing this one safe? You know, are you kind of holding out on just throwing the whole channel away? I mean, even though, I mean, she's pulled it, but I mean, I feel like she's going to come back. Someone actually in my comments said before that they said that she's done this before as far as pulling, you know, disappearing and coming back. Like, so they felt like, okay, well, she'll be back. She's, you know, she's done this before. Let me look at those comments again and see. So I'm like, okay, you know, maybe, you know, she did it and it was
Hey
before.
YouTube, it's your girl Chic from Chic Say.
Trying to go to my comments on here. So, you know, maybe, you know, she did leave before and come back. So that was probably, you know, before my time of, you know, knowing who she was. Let's see some of the comments that people said. Chris had her husband on the channel 7 years ago. It was after people questioned whether he existed or not. However, she took that video down because it was obvious he wasn't into it. There was no enthusiasm. He made an embarrassing comment and acted as if he didn't even want to give her a kiss. Another time they were on vacation and he refused to be seen in the video, but you could hear his voice. I think she wanted her husband to be involved in her brand and come to her defense when attacked. He did not. And I think that was definitely a source of strain in the marriage. Wow. That's interesting. You know, I felt like because we weren't seeing him that, you know, he just wasn't really interested in being a part of the business, her brand, which is perfectly fine. So that's why when I suddenly seen Mr. E and he was just like game for just being on her show, I'm like, okay. I looked at it as though her brand is centered around her being in an interracial relationship. So if she gets a divorce and suddenly finds herself with no longer having a white man, how do you push your business? Because if your business is, hey, go out and get you a Brad, but you ain't got a Brad, how does that work? Because legit, like, I feel like the same time she came out and acknowledged that she was divorced, it was like the same time I was learning about Mr. E. Like, literally, I feel like I learned about both of those things in her life like the same week. Because when I learned about, it's like I learned that she was divorced. And then I learned about Mr. E. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's go back. When did she get a divorce? It was like, we missed all that. And I was hearing a lot of people being that confused. They were like confused, like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, pause. You said she got a divorce because she never missed a beat with her business, with still pushing the whole get you a white man, it's this, it's that, and the third. But then you learned that she's divorced from the white man, but then she quickly rebounded and got a new white man. So I really feel like deep down, she didn't do enough screening on Mr. E. I feel like she found herself without a white man. Remember, her brand is to have a white man. So she had to kind of like overnight get a white man, like to replace the other one, because you got to keep the business going. And then Mr. E was a man that was like, okay, I'll be a part of your show, because I'm sure this time around, the new white man, she knew that the next time around, I need my white man to be on board with being a part of this, my brand, and showing his face and talking and interacting. Like, I felt like, especially since from reading that comment, when someone said that she had, I guess, did a video before with her ex-husband and his energy was low, like he kind of wasn't interested. I felt like she knew, like, okay, next time around, I got to have a white man who's interested, because I need to show that, okay, I'm the real deal. I'm legit. And from what that person who commented said, it's like people kind of, I guess, wasn't believing her, I guess, when she would say, okay, I got a white man. So it's like, okay, I don't believe you got a white man. Let me see. And that's kind of how that came about. And it's unfortunate she had to prove that she had a white man, but child, please, like, that's just a bit much. So now I feel like, okay, well, if I get me a new white man, I need him to be okay with being in front of the camera, because I want him to show his support to my brand by showing on a public forum that he's happy with being in an interracial relationship with me. Let's get back to the comments. It's interesting. I always find it interesting when reading the comments, because you definitely learn. You learn, you learn a lot, so I'm definitely learning from here. Let's see. Someone says Chrystalin is a nice, nasty girl. She doesn't really like being black, and people can say how sweet and sincere she is, but she really is a mean girl. Wow. I've never heard anyone say that about her, but that's an interesting opinion this person have of hers. It's not the opinion I have of her, but I respect, the opinion, her opinion. Someone says, what the hell I miss? CK always says choose the best man for the job, regardless of race and creed. That's what I say, Someone says some black women are the black men they complain about. Wow. And then someone said, like I said, CK has left before. She'll return. I feel like she'll return. It'll be interesting to see what that comeback is going to look like, because, that comeback is going to have to be real, for her to return. I also feel like that the longer she stay away, the harder it would make things for her to return. I think that, I'm hopeful that she make a return before the week is out, because I just feel like the longer she kind of goes without saying anything, the worse it is, and the more people are choosing to form, and they are forming their own opinion. Some people just making up stuff. Someone said he should have said "watch your mouth" in a disrespectful way to the black man for saying that about his lady, but instead he said, "I'm an N-word lover." I would have been mad too if he said that. He should have checked the F out of that black man, because that black man is dead wrong. CK handled that very well. So maybe this is a person who heard that live, or, since they said that CK handled that very well. So somehow they're aware of like how she handled it. I've heard that she kind of responded to, I guess she jumped back at Mr. E for making that comment and really read into him. But someone says yes, and she checked him for saying that. Personally, that would have been a done deal for me, but she's not me. So she checked him, but we don't know if that was like the end of the relationship. But supposedly she did check him for, with what he said. Someone says, real journalists of 38 years, black women and black men are the last choice of other races. According to statistical data, 97% of both white men and white women marry other white people. Asian, Latino, and Indian women date out white and Asian more often. Interracial sex may be high, but not so much interracial marriages. I can see that because you see a lot of Black men with non-Black women, but Black men don't marry in high numbers. So I can see that. Someone says, this is the second video that I've seen you comment on related to CK. This dumb A comment is not going to stop other Black people from dating out. So get a life, weirdo. And P.S. the reason why Black women interracial marriages are so low is because most Black women want Black men. And when they do marry out, their marriages tend to last longer than the Black woman's or marriage. So get your facts straight before writing an invalid argument. People have their opinion on this. That's why I'm like, Chris, go ahead and come out, because it's like people are forming all these crazy opinions. And if people keep hearing the same thing over and over again, they're going to, take that as, okay, this is the truth of what's going on. This is what happened. She hasn't come out to rebut it. So we're going with this narrative. And that's the downside of, when things are put out there, it can snowball and people will just go on as though that's true because, okay, it was like, well, he or she, they didn't say it wasn't true. So it must be some truth about it. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with. Someone says Chrystalin's man is Canadian. I don't think they have the same sensitivity to the N-word as we do. So he probably didn't even know how offensive he was until she checked him. I don't know anything about Canadians. I know Canada is a place, I've had on my bucket list for many years since I was a teenager with wanting to visit. I do have, once the world opened back up, I guess, anyway, I would love to still make my way to Canada one day, God willing. Someone says, no, he isn't ignorant, especially in this day and age. And Canada has a long history with Black people in doing malicious things. Blackface is one of them. I advise you research your history with Black people. Wow. Now that's something new. I've never heard that about Canada. Really, most of the things I hear about Canada is more positive, in comparison to like Europe or like, any of those places that, have a high number of just the Caucasian community. So that's very, interesting. That comment right there. Someone then says Canada is like 99% white. And didn't he say he'd never dated a Black person before her? Question mark. That's interesting because I got the vibes that he hadn't based off of how he's moving in this relationship. Excuse me. It's like he's moving like this is his first time dating out of his race. Like he don't have, like he's unfamiliar with just the Black culture. I mean, because I feel like if he was comfortable with the Black culture, he would have already known like, no, I can't use that word on any given day. But the commenter proceeds and said, it's not unusual for white people, even here in the U.S., to have had no personal interaction with a Black person, much less Canada, where there are virtually no Black people outside of the major cities. Many of them here don't even understand why it's offensive for them to use the N-word. So it's not implausible that a Canadian is ignorant to the nuances of race and the N-word. Wow. Then the person said, nope, not giving any excuses. I'm a Black Canadian and Canadians are not morons and will not give a pass. I know his intentions were good. He was defending his girl and repeated, but white men, Canadians included, know not to use the N-word. We are neighbors to the States, so there is no excuse, and there is history of racism here too. He clearly doesn't know how to speak in public, especially when it comes to such a sensitive subject. I bet white men too, they know better, and you should always go for the white man with the emotional intelligence. This is a learning curve for them. Hopefully he navigates better moving forward. Now, that's a comment I agree with. I felt like I didn't feel like he was ignorant really to, okay, the word and how damaging it is. I felt like he's used it before, and he slipped up and used it in a public platform. And it's like, oh, like it was like an afterthought of like after he said it. But again, I didn't hear what he said, what he said, and then how he immediately reacted after maybe Chrystalin responded. But just going off of the information that I have pertaining to the situation, I feel like he said a word that he's familiar with using. And I also feel like Chrystalin did not do a good enough job vetting this man. Yeah, I don't feel like she did a good enough job vetting him. It's almost like, okay, I need a white man to fill in or replace the other white man because I got a business to run. Like something just very quick. That's my opinion because of how quickly we learn, okay, she's divorced and now here's Mr. E. It wasn't any lag time in between. And I don't feel any sense or get any vibes that Chrystalin has been divorced for more than a year. I'm not picking that up. I've never heard her say how long she's been divorced, but I'm not picking up that it's been some years. To me, I feel like the whole divorce and her meeting and dating Mr. E, that's all been, in the last 12 months or since the pandemic. Yeah, remember, we've been hearing a lot of people getting divorces through the pandemic. I always say, I think during these times when people have been like shut in with one another, they kind of learned that, you know what, I really don't like you. And they really never thought about how they felt about their spouse because there was always these other distractions or things that had them away from the home, or maybe one of the, whether it's the husband or wife traveled a lot. So it's like now with the things that they normally were doing kind of came to a halt and you're forced to kind of be in the house with one another. It's just like, you know what? Let's talk. And I mean, that's just the vibe I've gotten when it comes to like when I've heard about all these relationships coming to an end. Like, you guys remember like last year, left and right, we were just hearing about all these people filing for a divorce. And it's just like, and at this time, like this was like legit, like when things were shut down, like with Neo and his wife, they were going their separate ways. Who else I can think of off the top of my head? I mean, it was a lot of relationships we were hearing that was kind of coming to an end, like marriages, not like boyfriend or girlfriend, like whole marriages. And the only thing, me being the deep thinker that I am, and analyzing things, the only thing I can come up with is like these people were like forced to talk to each other for the first time in a long time. Because like I said, when you have other distractions like your work, your kids, that can take your attention away from dealing with issues that are present. Like that's a real thing. That's how I equate to a lot of couples later in their years when the kids are grown and then they suddenly just regular everyday people get a divorce. At one point I used to like be so confused, like, well, how do you divorce somebody after 20, 30 years? Like, but as I got older, I came to see that it is a real thing to grow apart from someone. And a lot of times people stay together for the children. And it's like, once the children are grown and gone and moved on with their life, these couples, they feel like, okay, well, we've done our part with raising our children, and we haven't really been completely happy for some time now. So I think that maybe it'd be good if we both just go and find our happiness wherever. So now that I'm older, I'm married, like I understand that's a thing, and the kids are no longer there as a distraction. Because I believe a lot of times when you are raising a family, raising children, it is a distraction. A lot of time, I see couples, it's kind of interesting. I'll see couples and they won't really be interacting with each other, but they're at sporting events supporting their children, but they're like not saying anything to each other to where you wouldn't even know they were together. You just know when the kid come off the field and then the kid joined their parents, and then you suddenly see the husband and the wife kind of start moving in closer to each other to, to leave the facility. It's like, oh, wow. And I see it like I've seen it quite a bit, and you just see the disconnect there. And then, so it is a thing where people do stay together for their children, or many men will say it's cheaper to keep her. I've heard that too. So it's, it's a thing, so I just feel like, Chrystalin, she wanted to, for the sake of her brand, get her a new man, because I feel like, if it wasn't for the brand, she may have not rushed into it. I feel like she rushed into it. I don't know if she did, but I feel like she rushed into it, because I think that had she dated him longer and not, brought him into her business and got to know him more, I think he would have then, even if he'd never dated a Black woman, I don't know, different discussions would have came up, how you just talk about cultural differences, things of that nature. Like, you talk. And to me, it just seemed like, I guess their talking was more so centered around like business, her brand, versus like talking about your, where one another come from, the experiences. Like, I guess it didn't seem like it's probably been much deep conversations taken with them, because I felt like, when she brought Mr. E on board, I guess I felt like I said when she brought him on board, but I just felt like he was kind of like a forced thing with her presenting him to the world on her platform. It was almost like she was proving a point. And it's unfortunate, someone went on Clubhouse and just taunted Mr. E and just created this. I believe that was what their intent was. Okay, let me go on there and shake things up. I don't really be on Clubhouse like that, but I'm familiar with it. I've been on it. Fortunately, the few times I have been on there, it wasn't any like troll type people on there talking crazy and stuff like that. But if it's like any other social media type platform, you're going to have your people who are going to come into your space and talk reckless and talk crazy, and you just have to ignore them. And this is a person to where I felt like they was, it was their intent to say something reckless to get Mr. E to say something that can be used against him. Like, I feel like that's what happened. And I mean, it's unfortunate because he called himself trying to defend his lady, and the tension turned away from the troll. I'll call him that for lack of a better word. The tension turned away from the troll, and it became a new focal point of Mr. E using the N-word. It's just like, oh my God, like, really? It's almost like it was a whole setup. Like, don't this sound like it sounded like it was a whole setup, and he fell for it. Like, okay, we finna go in here and shake up the room. I mean, I feel like people legit like do stuff like that. Like, we finna start some mess, like kind of throw a rock and hide your hand. We finna start some mess. We finna say this because we know he gonna react. And then as soon as he react, we can be like, I told you so. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like really, how fair is that? And it's just unfortunate that Mr. E fell for it. But again, I feel like he fell for it because as far as with using that N-word is because it was already a part of his vocabulary. And Chrystalin learned that day that it was a part of his vocabulary. She did not know that before, because I do not believe that she would date a man who uses that word. I don't believe she would. I don't believe she would have dated him to use that word. So it's like in that moment, it's almost like she met Mr. E. It's like, oh my God, this is who I've been dating. Like legit, it seems like on Clubhouse, she met her man for the first time. And I know sis had to be highly embarrassed. Like how often does that happen with what went down that day? Like, you can't, what they say, you can't make this stuff up. That's kind of the vibe that gives me. Like, okay, you can't make this up. And I'm sure Crystalin's feeling like this is a whole nightmare. And, it's sad. And I just hope that, I guess, she can make it right. She can make her wrong right. I mean, even though it wasn't her fault, but it was her platform. So she has to take responsibility. And of course, we know he has to take responsibility. So I'm ready for them to both come out. AABM, no, she knew. She just thought his anti-blackness was only directed towards black men. You know what? I think sometimes we get in a situation to where, that's why I'm one of those people that believe in, like, you can't talk about your people too bad to another group of people. Like, and that makes a lot of sense. It's like, she talked so bad about, I guess, black men to where, okay, well, he felt comfortable to say things too. And I never thought about it that way, but that does make sense. And I'm one of those people that don't feel that black people should be be publicly in front of non-black people talking about our people negatively. Like, I don't believe that. And I was recently like on a platform, and it was a content creator that called the black culture. He said black culture is just trash, like, point blank, period. Like, that's how he felt. He was like, this is what I stand on. And some of the other people on the platform, or in particular lady, she was like, I don't feel like we should down our people in front of other people like that. Because to your point, AABM, it makes them feel comfortable that they can do it too. And that's a good point. He felt comfortable that he can do it too. Yes, I am talking about him. And it's like, he's one of the people, you love him or hate him. It's like, he's my least favorite. Anton, he makes some good points, but he's very arrogant. And to me, I get the sense, it's almost like, I feel like he forgot where he came from, or he wants to forget where he came from. It's like he want to disconnect himself from our culture. But you can't. But I feel like he'd like to. He'd really like to disconnect himself from the black culture. And when he makes comments that's negative about our culture, it just goes to show that I feel as though he's embarrassed by our cultural group. Like, I low-key really feel like if he wasn't married to the black woman he's married to, he would not be married to a black woman. There's nothing about him that says that he would. I don't feel like he would. But now, I mean, he done created this brand, this image about being married and success. And, everyone in his family is married, to where he can't veer away from that. But he sparks me as a type to where if he were to step out or do something different, it wouldn't be with a black woman. Yeah. So it's like, he's something else. And I just feel like, he says he's a millionaire, and he just doesn't want to be affiliated with our culture. AABM, he said, our culture is trash, and any self-respecting black person would condemn our dysfunctional culture. I feel like we have things about our culture. I agree that we have dysfunction within our culture. But as a whole, I guess when I think about our culture, I just think about black people in general. And I don't want to view black people in general as being trash, because to me, that type of statement just says that there was nothing positive that people in the black community do. And that's not true. That's not true. There's a lot of people, black people, who are in the world doing great things, or even content creators who are speaking positive things into our community. So when we talk about black culture being trash, to me, I feel like you're encompassing them too. You say, I only date Black women, but I can still acknowledge that our culture is counterintuitive and broken. I agree with that, but I just think that to say just a blanket statement, our culture is trash, that's the part that I can't really rock with. I just think that that's a harsh statement to say, and it's so, our culture, there's just many facets of our culture. And to me, our culture includes our history of slavery. Like, it encompasses all of that. So when we say that, do we say they were trash too? Like, that's how I look at it. I look at it beyond today. I look at it as just in general with our, with our past, where we are today. What are things that we talk about that we would like to go forward for our future? Like, I encompass all of that. So it would be interesting to know, okay, Anton, when he makes the statement, our culture is trash, is he factoring in those people, our forefathers, those people who were here before us? Is he factoring in all those married people within his family that he talks about? Like, to me, that's all part of the culture. So if you're saying we're trash, you're talking about them too. I don't see how you not include them. Our history is great, but the way our culture teaches our history is trash. And that's interesting because I once heard, I think it was Umar Johnson, and he said that at the which I found to be surprising, by the way, but he said at the HBCUs, it's not even required to take a course in Black history. Like, he said, it's offered as an elective, but it's not a requirement for any of the courses. And I found that quite interesting. This week my niece just got dropped off at TSU, and if you're familiar with Anton, you might be familiar with Courtney. She's an alumni from there. But I just found that to be very interesting when he said that it's not taught. But here's another thing. I do understand that HBCUs were started by like white people. So, as I think Anton may even talk about, like, or other people talk about it, like, Black people, we don't have ownership in anything, not even our schools. So the history, as far as in our schools, again, that goes back to something that's not necessarily controlled by us. It's controlled by who's funding. Like what they say, if you want to know who's in control, follow the money. And our schools aren't funded primarily like by the Black, they were founded by white people. I think I just learned that Spelman was founded by Rockefeller, and his wife, her last name was I think her name was Laura Spelman. I didn't even know that. So I just kind of recently learned that, but I'm like, well, I did know that they say, the HBCUs, I think I learned that from Umar Johnson as well, that the HBCUs were, for the most part, founded by white people. So again, it's back to, we don't have ownership in anything. Yeah. And I think that when we start having ownership in things, we can have a louder voice. Dr. Boyce Watkins talks about things like that a lot of times on his channel with us putting money into our own. Like, we don't even see our celebrities do that. Like, we have a lot of, celebrities just within our community, and we don't even see them kind of band together collectively to really do something impactful for the Black community. So I guess if you want to throw that into the, the category of, our culture is trash, but I just think that it's so many pieces to it. So I just don't like to collectively just say our culture is trash. I think there's aspects about the Black culture that is trash. I'll say that. Because there is, as someone said, like, Black people are trendsetters, like everything that's like, we're the trendsetter of just all kinds of things. And it's like, oh, well, when we do it, oh, it's a bad look. But like, a white person can come on and jack the idea, and they treating it like it's a whole new thought of idea that just came about, and now it's positive. Like, Hell, you probably can slap a bonnet on a white girl and they start sporting it, and suddenly it ain't looked at as being crazy no more out there for women to walk around with bonnets. Like, really, I mean, it just seems like anytime, we do it is looked at in a negative light, but then when they do it, then it's just like, oh, okay, like they then came up with something that's just mind-blowing. You say the victimhood narrative we use to teach Black history is counterproductive. Our music is counterproductive. Our ideals are counterproductive. The Black people we empower are counterproductive. Yeah, I agree. I think that we do need to make adjustments in how we move within our culture. But I think it just goes back to resources and our people coming together. But again, that goes back to money and resources. I just really feel like if we had the money and the resources that other cultural groups have, it can really make a difference within our communities. Like, I feel like those things that you talk about, that's viewed as being trash, they can be improved if there people within our communities have more money to put into things. I think even just talk about music, our music being trash. I think a lot of our kids strive to say be these rappers because, they want to get out of their situation, get out of poverty, and they're not seeing a way out other than turning to music or turning to being an athlete. It's like they're not seeing examples of other ways in which they can be successful in. And I think it has a lot to do with just the limited resources that they have in their communities. The trends we said are counterproductive. Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue that. I can only hope that, the generations to come will do differently, will be better. I'm seeing like a lot of, our youth, in particular, the millennials, they're very, very vocal about things. They're all about, trying to become, entrepreneurs and make a way for themselves versus trying to kind of go work for someone and have someone dictate their way. So I am seeing a change, a shift in the mindset with our younger people. I'm starting to see them move with more intent. I'm starting to see them or hear them talk more about a purpose, trying to do something different, wanting to make a change. So I am seeing, as far as with this generation, the younger people, like within their 20s, trying to move and do things, differently. So it remains to be seen if, things start to get better within our communities. But I really feel like that if our community collectively had more money, I think it would impact all of the areas that you've hit on. What they say, money is power, and our community collectively, we don't have money. We don't have money. So all that, we're seeing that's trash, it's a result of that. People kind of have this mentality of, well, by any means necessary, I'm going to get mine some type of way, even if I got to go take it, or like, I just would like to see just our people come together, bring our resources together, so therefore we can have more and we can build. And it comes down to us wanting to try to work together and not work against one another. And I see a lot of, it's like, just even with Chrystalin and Sinji, it's like we're always kind of battling with one another, or even with the men and the women. It's just like, when can we we come together. It's like everybody wants to kind of push the other, give pushback and just be reluctant or just want to go against what the other one said just for the sake of an argument. It's just like, okay, do you really have an opposing opinion, or do you just want to just have a different point of view just to have something to argue about? Like, that's a lot of times I'm left wondering, when I listen to people speak or when I even communicate with people, and it's annoying. It's just like everything doesn't have to be an argument. And I think, for the most part, majority of what Anton say, I would say like 90% of what he say, I agree with. I just think that his way about, or his deliverance, I think a lot of people miss what he says because of how he delivers his message. You ever hear they say it's not really what you say, how you say it. And sometimes he can deliver his message in a arrogant way or a condescending way, or appear that he has no regard for the next person's feelings. Like, I even heard him, it was like one guy talked about, I know it was actually Chicago Rilla, this other content guy on this, I don't know if he's a content creator, but I see him often on platforms with Anton. And Chicago mentioned that he had a friend who just got out of prison, and or I don't know when he got out of prison, but he started a business. But immediately, as soon as Anton heard him say his friend got out of prison, Anton, I wouldn't want no parts of him. And really didn't even finish what he was saying. His point was, he got out, he changed his life, he's moving this way. And Anton really didn't have nothing to say after that. So how do you just want to discount this man? You didn't even hear Chicago even speak on the man's story. All he said was he just got out. You don't know why he went. You didn't even hear long enough if the man had even gotten locked up when he wasn't supposed to. We hear those cases where people go to prison, do time, and they were falsely, like, come on. Like, sometimes I feel like Anton wants to ignore the issues within our community because he only want to focus on the solutions. I get you want to focus on the solutions, but you can't still dismiss the reality of what we're dealing with. You can't dismiss it just because, you just want to focus on the present. No, like, you can't just skip over that and just be like, okay, we're not going to talk about how we just going to talk about how you feel. No, you can't. It's layers to it. You have to address something. You have to address things. And just because you address things, it don't mean that you have to soak in it and live in it. You can address things because that's just letting the other person know, hey, I hear what you're saying and I understand. That's what hearing somebody out mean. Not, if someone talk about their plight, you're like, you need to get over it. Like, you can't be dismissive like that. And I find that oftentimes he can be very like dismissive. And it just gives me that vibe of him like wanting to forget about his past. Like, he's someone that's like, okay, I want to forget when I was broke. I want to forget when, I was treated this way or treated that way. Now I'm rich and I'm treated with this respect and I can wear these designer robes. Like, it's like he only want to focus on his present and he want to just dismiss his journey. And it doesn't work that way. Yeah, I agree. His delivery isn't for the faint of the heart, but that doesn't negate what he says is true. I agree. But I think you can miss people when you don't, because I'm just like, I can be very direct and I can deliver a message, but what I work on is my delivery method, because I don't want to lose people. Most importantly, I want people to get the message. I want people to get the message. So because I want people to get the message, I have to give more thought into how I'm going to deliver this message, because it's more important for me to deliver this message and people to get it than me to deliver a message because, well, this is just how I am. You ever meet some people and they just got whack communication delivery and they just fall back on, well, this is just how I am. Okay, well, fine, that can be how you are. But at the same time, don't feel a certain type of way when nobody wants to interact with you or deal with you because they feel like you don't have people skills. And that's how I view Anton, is like he's stuck in his way. And like I said, 90% of what he says, I agree. But I get that. I feel like he dismisses people's experiences far too much. And just because someone has an experience, it doesn't mean that they're trying to live in it and not navigate away from it. They're just saying, hey, this has been my experience. And I feel that acknowledging someone's experience, it's nothing wrong with that. That's just natural human nature to acknowledge someone's experience, because you're going to grab them in then, because once they be like, okay, well, this person, they're showing empathy, they're acknowledging that I went through some things. Now that person gonna be like, okay, well, let me hear them out. You know, they might have a solution and help me with how to get past what I've been going through. Let's take it a step further. That's called building relationships. That's called building relationships. And I don't think Anton does that good of a job when it comes to the building of relationships part. What good is it being right, but you ain't got nobody around you, you know, that's telling you that, like, okay, is it more important to be right, or is it important to grab the attention of people so you can provide the supports that they may need? Our culture enables Black women like Sanji to exist. Sinji, I feel like, has an opinion of Black men that a lot of Black women have. I just think that Sinji is, she just has a platform where she can just spew it out. But I think collectively, Black women, they may feel a certain way about Black men, but they still deal with them. They complain, but they still carry on, clearly, have babies with them, do everything else with them. It's just they complain. Sinji, I don't get the impression that she dates at all or deals with anybody that's Black. Like, she's just doing her. So Sinji, to me, is an example of just how the dysfunction that we do have within our relationships, you know, or as far as the disconnect between men and women. She's an example of that. When you listen to Sinji, she's an example of, okay, why our marriage stats are so low. She's the example of why most of our babies are born out of wedlock. Like, she is the reminder of all of that. But I don't think collectively most women, their energy is that high, or I think, as I say, they may say whatever about the Black men, but they're still kind of in the game per se, where they're still dating and entertaining these men, whereas Sinji is like, okay, I'm done with them, forget them. Like, I don't really collectively hear Black women say that, like, they're done with Black men. Like, that's just not what most Black women do. We're seeing it on these platforms, if you got these people with high, subscriber counts, but in my, as I move day to day, like, I'm not hearing like, as far as the Black women I talk to or interact with, like, where they're like, got this energy of like, they're done with our Black men. So, Sinji is just like I think she's in a small pool of people who kind of feel as passionate about, I guess, our Black men the way she does, if that makes sense. Yeah, the collective of Black women hate Black men. I agree. Hate is a strong word. I don't think that the collective of Black women hate Black men. I think Black women largely feel disappointed in our Black men. But I think hate is a strong word, because a lot of, our Black women, they're raising black men. I'm raising black men. I'm married, but I'm raising black men. So I have a brother, so I don't feel like they hate black men. I think they're just disappointed in them. That's what I pick up when I hear just, black women talk about whatever, pertaining to black men. It's mostly out of, they're disappointed. They're disappointed in the black man not stepping up, not coming through, not being there for their kids. Like, they're just disappointed. But like I said, they're still in the game with dating black men. Most black women date black men. So it doesn't make sense to me that they're dating people that they hate, if you think about it. So that's why I wouldn't use the word hate. I would replace it with, black women are disappointed with black men. If other groups of men wanted to date black women would take off immediately. Well, here's the thing. Other groups of men do. Like, I know a lot of black women who talk about they get hit on regularly from men of other cultural groups, in particular white men. It's just that black women are more loyal to the black men. Black women aren't as comfortable with dating. Like, I talk to them all the time and they'll just be like, I'm just not comfortable with dating outside of my race. Or they may outright say, I just want a black man. I love a black man. So it has nothing to do with other races not being interested in them, because I've seen it for myself. They're interested. It's just that the women, they're still showing loyalty to the black man. The black women want black men, period. Like, that's why most black women are married to black men. Most black people who are married, they're married to each other. So black women are just loyal to their black men. But it's not that it's not other people. It's not that it's not other people that's interested in them, especially the white man. Because I've seen these women. I've seen it. It's just that I talk to these black women. They're just not interested. Like Carrie Hilson. She was like, I want a black man. Like, she's an attractive girl. Would you believe that other races wouldn't be interested in her? So she's a celebrity, but I can say I see it just with regular everyday women. There are other cultural groups that be checking for black women. Black women just don't be open for that. They're like, no, thank you. Black women drive black fathers out of the household. Black women drive black fathers out of the household. How don't we step up and raise our kids? Spreading that narrative about black men is an act of hate. I will say, I did a video on just on who's having children more, black women or black men, because I had heard someone say that most black men do not have children. So I found out that was interesting. That was my first time hearing it. So then that's like, time went on, I heard it again. So I'm like, okay, I need to research this. And what I concluded was that, yes, collectively, more black women have children than black men. Yes, black women are having children with like the same pool of men. So that's how that's even possible. So with that being said, going off of that stat, it doesn't show that black men being the problem if they don't have most of the kids. It's more, black women, and then when they are having kids, who they're choosing to have children with. And in that small pool of men who are making these children in large numbers, like a Future, or as we see with Nick Cannon, there's a lot of, women that are now finding themselves single raising these kids. So I do think that it changes things as far as that narrative of black men don't take care of their kids or they're not in the house, because based off of my research, it's a small number of black men that have children. I will say the black women who I do know who are single parents, with their situations and them raising the children by themselves, their issue hasn't been that black man wanted to be around. He just had no interest in even being around. So he just dipped out. He just got go. So I do believe maybe there may be some situations where the black man got ran up out of the house, but the examples I've seen, it hasn't been that. It's been like that man just don't even care to be around. He don't even try to even call, maybe to even learn if whether or not he can come over or not. Like he's just not interested at all in just being in the house or having, any parts of that child's life. But, as they say, the stats show black, women, let me just say women file for a divorce more than men. So if you want to go off of that, I guess with the divorce filings being more so by women, then that's going to be driven by, I guess the man's going to be leaving the house then because that woman has filed for the divorce. But again, in our communities, that's like 29% of us are married. So marriage and divorce, that's not even a big issue in our communities because many of our Black people aren't even getting married to begin with. Black women aren't more loyal. Should I use data? The vast majority of white men want white women or Asian women. Those numbers may be true. What I'm just saying is that there are men of other cultural groups who are interested in Black women. That's what I'm saying. I've seen it. So as far as the data on, yes, they're probably more. Well, first of all other cultural groups are just loyal to each other in general. Our Black cultural group, we're just not really loyal to one another like that. So you can just apply that in all kinds of different areas. I'm just saying I've talked to women who talk about other men of other cultural groups. I've witnessed it myself who's shown interest in them. I've even, experienced it. I've dated outside of my race before. So I'm just talking about from personal experiences. I'm married to a Black man, but the experiences that I had, if I wanted to be married to a white man or Asian man, I could have. A Hispanic man, like the options were there for me. So I've seen those options there for other ladies. But yes, I'm not going to argue with more white men or with white women because that's going to be across the board with all of the races. More out of the 29% of Black people that are married, more Black men and women are married. So it's just that Black men date out more than Black women. But when you look at the numbers, okay, more Black men and Black women are married to each other versus being married to somebody else, which is, a small subset of Black men. Yeah. So it's just layers to everything. So I just try to be open-minded and objective to things, see things from a different angle, different points of views, listening to, AABM, your comments, it has me to think about different things, maybe things I hadn't thought about. So it's nothing wrong with it. It's about growth and growing. And that's how I move in life. That's how I know what I know, because I ask questions. I'm open to hearing what other people have to say. I'm not closed off, closed-minded. That's just never been me. I want to hear what people have to say because it allows for me to learn and to grow and to take that information to share with other people. And I want to be that to other people. I will hope that maybe there's some things that I said that maybe gave them or you a different perspective or made you say, okay, well, that's a different way of thinking, because we are unique. We're going to have different thoughts. We're going to interpret things differently, and that's okay. We just have to be mature enough to be able to effectively communicate with one another. Like, let's talk about it. And I don't think that in our community, in our cultural group, we do that enough. It seemed like people are afraid to talk to each other. So they just kind of stay in their corner and just talk mess about the other one versus kind of coming together and just talking things out. When you say Black men marry out 0.4% more than Black men. I know that they marry out more than Black women. I've never pulled the data to see it in comparison. I just knew they married out more. But here's another thing. A lot of Black men don't get married, period. So I think that if we looked at it and even looked at it from even a dating standpoint and not even marriage, that's a whole nother set of data to even look at, because collectively Black men are, date interracially more than a Black woman. It's just that it may not necessarily result in a marriage, because collectively Black men ain't trying to get married, but they date. So Black men will make Becky a baby mama and Maria a baby mama too. So there's data on that show, okay, well, they out there with those other women, they just maybe didn't wife them up. As, Sinji say, oh, you got the same Black man as, Keisha got. So, white women can be baby mamas too. They baby mamas too now. Yeah. Come on, let me see. So, I'm, interracial dating, I'm fine with that. I just don't like when groups kind of exclude their own group. That's my thing. Like, you can date outside your race, but when you start saying you don't date your own, then that's when I'm like, okay, that's when I'm giving you the side eye, because I don't feel like you should X out your race. Like, I don't think that that's cool at all. To me, that's up there. I don't know. I just don't think you should X out your race. I think that when you do that, it sends a message that you're not proud of who you are. Like, you want to be disconnected from your race, and you want to be disconnected from your race so much that you don't even date within your race. Like, that's the energy I get up out of that. And, I sometimes hear people say that, they don't even date in a race. I don't even think Chrystalin dates in a race. I've never outright heard her say that she don't date Black men, but the energy I've picked up is that she don't. I know her first child was by a Black man. She was not married to him, from what she said, but she married the white man, which they had 3 children together. So, but I never hear her talk about like her being open with giving a Black man a chance. I think like she's done like whatever experience that she's had, like she's like, I'm closed off to all Black men. So that's just something like I'm not here for. Like, I think people are people, and they should be judged individually, not as a cultural, like not as a whole. You're spreading more Black male hate with that narrative. The data has been collected. 43% of Black men desire marriage, 23% of Black women, 23% of Black women desire marriage. So that's interesting, given all across YouTube, I'm hearing all these men talk about they don't want no parts of marriage. So what I'm hearing is, with their mid-gal, the men going their own way, like there's with the manosphere, like they're like bump marriage, like that's the thing that they're putting out there. So I don't know how recent, men, I feel like collectively men want to be married and women want to be married. I hear I think nowadays a lot of women say they don't want to be married because they don't find it feasible. I think they think that it's just not even an option. So now they're just like, forget it. I don't even want to be married. It's no big deal. I think marriage is devalued as a whole within the Black community, because we see so many people who just make a life without marriage. So it becomes a thing where, okay, well, I don't need to be married because, my mama wasn't married. My aunt wasn't married and they did just fine. My sister not married. So it's like, okay, it becomes devalued. And then people start looking at like marriage statistics. So, those numbers you threw out there, I'm not going to argue them. It's just, I hear so many men out there that strongly discouraging marriage today. Have you heard anything like that? It looks like I'm spamming because I'm the only one typing. It's a conversation going on. No, you're not spamming. AABM, he's been in for a minute. We've been just having a conversation. He was, the only one who was chiming in. And I thank you for that. We've had good dialogue. He has a different perspective on some of the things that I've been saying. So, we've just been able to just talk about, our views on just the different things, I guess, pertaining to men and women and our viewpoint of one another, or even within our culture. So, as I say, I'm always open to hear the different ideas and opinions of other people, because that's how we grow. You grow from hearing different ideas. But thanks for looking out, Simply Bree. You have anything to add on it? We're just talking about just the culture, like Black men, Black women. Do they want each other? Is it really true that Black men don't take care of their kids, or Black women want to get married and Black men don't? Because AABN been telling me that it's not true, So, a lot of, we've been kind of having a dialogue about supporting whatever our argument is. I have another video out there with some data and statistic. I didn't, wasn't plan on going into all of that on this video. So I can't really argue the data that, he's put out there, because I don't know. I don't have that in front of me, but I just know that just as I'm moving in this world and in these YouTube streets, what I'm hearing is like Black men are like saying no to marriage. And you know what? Black women are, even the way a lot of them, they're talking, it just seems like they're not even talking really about being on that marriage tip. It's just like they can take it or leave it. And like I said, I think a lot of them, they've gotten discouraged. They say, okay, it feels better to say, oh, no, I don't want a man anywhere. I don't want to get married, because they don't see it as attainable. I encounter people like that in my personal life, where they'll say what they don't want, and then when the opportunity presents themselves for they to have it, oh, they didn't switch the whole tune, and now they happy about it. And it's like they never said they didn't want it. So I think it's just something people don't want to acknowledge, something that they feel like is not achievable. So they feel better by saying, well, I didn't want it anyway. But low key they did. But it's like, since nobody ain't asked them, proposed to them, they'd rather say, well, I don't want to be married, or I don't need no man. But I personally feel like it's cap. I just think that it's a defense mechanism that a lot of times women use, because it makes, as I say, you can sleep better at night by saying what you don't want, because it's something you don't have. So you just feel better by telling yourself you didn't want it. But low key, you really do. And I think we just have to start being real with ourselves. And if men honestly want to be married and women want to be married too, okay, there you go. But if one group is lying, the other one, like, how are you going to meet in the middle if people are not being upfront and honest about what they want? Like, where does that make sense? It doesn't. Like, how do you meet in the middle if no one's being honest about really what they really want? Be honest about it. Like, you want a wife, say you want a wife. If you want a husband, say you want a husband. And people are just embarrassed to admit what they want, because they're afraid that, okay, the people in their corner is going to be like, what you want that? Didn't you see your boy get a divorce? Like, but I mean, it's natural to want to be married to something. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be. But it's like we live in a culture that it's abnormal to want to live a normal life. It's like, when it, it's like nobody want to publicly admit that, okay, as far as say, take a single woman, that single woman don't want to publicly admit, yeah, I want a man, because they feel like, okay, they'll appear to be weak by saying they want a man. But sis, it ain't nothing wrong with you saying you want a man. I wanted a man, I got a man. Like, I got a man because I want a man. Like really, it's not that deep. And I think people make it far more deep than what it really should have to be, really. It's not that deep. And people just need to stop fronting and just be honest with each other and say, how they really feel. So you're admitting that our culture is trash. I'm not admitting our culture is trash, but I'm admitting we got some work to do. I don't like the word trash. We got some work to do. I'm admitting to that. We got some work to do. Again, I guess I'm still factoring in where we came from. There was a time where more of our more Black men and women were married. There was a time when our homes looked different. There was a time when our communities, we were prospering. So what I can say, today, our community isn't moving in the best light in which I know we're capable of doing. But I don't want to say our community is trash, because for me, there's a lot for me to be grateful for as far as when it comes to our Black community. I'm proud to be a Black person. I see a lot of strength within our Black community. But I will say we need work. We need work. And let's just say if, our Black community is trash, what are we going to do about it? Like, what are we going to do about it? If Anton's on the tip of, solutions, what are we going to do about it? Because just sitting in your corner, just saying, oh, our community is trash, then okay, like, what is that doing to me? I mean, it's not doing anything. So we need to put more energy into trying to build our communities. Yeah, we got to focus. Okay, well, what can we do to make our community look like? For me, I try to be an example of a woman in a healthy relationship, a woman who's taking care of her children. Like, I try to be an example to show that I don't fit the narrative of, okay, a child born to a teen mom, also been a teen mom, because according to statistics, since you be on your stats, statistically, I should have been a teen mom. I'm a product of it, a teen mom. So I should have been a teen mom, but I'm not. I mean, I've been married almost close to 20 years, believe it or not. October 1st, I'll be married 17 years. So I've been married for a minute. So I want to be an example to show that we can move differently. We can make better decisions, because I'm an example of that. And one thing I did, that I know Anton believes in, it's nothing about being special. It's just about making a different decision, choosing to go a different route. I chose to go a different route. Simple as that. Like, I chose to do something different than what I seen. I chose to do something different than what most do. And a lot of people are scared to do something different. I wasn't. I knew that I wanted more than what was presented to me growing up. I knew there was more out there. I saw that there was more out there. So my thoughts was, well, if they can have it, why can't I? Like, it wasn't that deep. So women, if you want to be married and have a husband, you can have that. Men, if you want to be married and have a wife, you can have that. You just have to move it with intent. Learn what it is, or learn what it takes to get the things that you want, and do it. It's not rocket science, But I think a lot of people, we talk about, let's say, don't talk about it, be about it. A lot of people spend more time just talking about what they want. I heard somebody say, if you continue to talk about something you want, then it's just a dream. Like, you gotta put work into that thing. And I've always been one about putting the work into something. I have my hands in, many different hats. Like, I have a lot of skill sets, education. Like, I'm all about growth. And that's what brought me here. I'm about growth, I figure, okay, well, I got some information that I can share to the world. It might be somebody out there who can benefit from what I'm saying. So let me go ahead and share it. What good is me learning about things and experiencing things and not share it with somebody so they can benefit from it? I mean, it's doing me no good for me to just be sitting on the information. Let me share it with somebody. Maybe somebody else can benefit from what it is that what I did, what I learned, my wins, my losses. I'm like an open book. So I like to, people who I come in contact with, I like to share my story. Because it's easy for people to form assumptions, which is why I would love, I want Chrystalin to come out and speak, because I don't want there to just be these assumptions. I want her to come out and speak her piece and tell her truth, and kind of people go from there. People respect that. You see, I think the first thing we must do is collectively acknowledge that our culture is trash and condemn it. Then we should take the best cultural practice of other cultures to create a new one. I personally feel like collectively Black people don't view our culture as trash. And I think there's different reasons why they don't view our culture as trash. As I said, I'm curious to know, like, say, take Anton, for example, when he talks about the culture being trash, do he take into consideration of just our history? Does he feel that our culture has always been trash, or do he feel like, okay, at one point it wasn't, and then it became trash? Because I think to just say our culture is trash, I don't think collectively most people will agree with that. That's why I think it's people want it broken down like, okay, are you talking about just right now during these times? Because some people may not agree that our culture has always been quote unquote trash. Today, I see things about our culture that's trash, but there's things about our culture in the past that I don't identify as trash. That's why I don't lump it all together. So yeah, so that's just my take on it. But I do feel like, in order for us to address something or something that may appear to be a problem, we do have to acknowledge it. I do think collectively our people have to acknowledge that we need to do better. We have to put in the work. So until we acknowledge it, we're not going to see anything better. And I do feel like the way our people are moving, they don't view the culture as being trash. So therefore they're continuing doing what they do. Hence the women continuing to wear the head bonnets. I feel like I see them more now than I did before Monique said something. It's just like, okay, are people like rebelling? Like, I'm going to put my bonnet on. I was in a grocery store yesterday. I seen 2 women that had the bonnets on. I'm like, wow. So it's just like, I don't think, most Black people think the culture is trash. I don't know what most Black people think of the culture, but I wouldn't say they think it's trash though. I think a good number of them probably think that we moving in the right direction. I think we need work. Yeah, I mean, we definitely got plenty. We have plenty to work on. And I'm just one person that's here to help however I can. And let me see, what did you say about the numbers? You said, no, our culture was great prior to the 70s, but then our culture started to change shortly after the civil rights movement ended. Okay. So that's why, you acknowledge it at one point it was great. That's why I wanted to know, is it something that was like a blanketed, like it's just trash, or is there a period? Is it like, okay, I'm just saying right now what's going on in it? Because right now, yes, we got a lot of trash stuff going on. But I guess when I look at our past, I'm like, no, that's not trash. So, excuse me, since you separated it, okay, I'll say, okay, today, there's a lot of trash things going on, but I just wouldn't blanket it and say our culture is trash, because I'm factoring in prior to the 70s that you just talked about. So I think you gotta, with saying the culture is trash, I think more context need to go into it, like saying, okay, post 70s, it's been trash. I think that makes a difference, at least for me, because that's kind of how I kind of break it down, like the time periods. Because hopefully, like when we go into a whole new time period, things will be better. Things change over time. But yeah, we do need to do better as a people. Each one teach one, and all you can do is just be the example of what you want to see. I would like to see more of Black men and women married to each other, having children within the marriage, like all of that. So, I try to be an example of that. That's all I can do is just, be example of what I'd like to see within our culture as a whole. So I think we all can afford to do better. Men and women individually, collectively, we can all afford to do better. And we all have to kind of put that in our mind in order for us to start seeing a difference made. But I do really believe that a lot of our issues is rooted in finances, money. I mean, I just feel like if our community had more money, because we're the poorest community, so we're struggling more in all these areas, AABM, that you pointed out. But I feel like the root of it is finances. We're like the poorest community. I think probably the Hispanics might be above us, or maybe barely. I think they above us. They probably not too far above us, but it's like we're at the bottom. Collectively, we're at the bottom. And we built this country, and then for us to be at the bottom, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I really don't see us making a huge difference where we can see the impact on a great level like that without reparations. I mean, without Black people just getting, like, we need that boost, because it's almost like in comparison, say, to the white culture or the Asian culture, we're not even in the game. We're not even in the game. And only how we can even get in the game is that it's almost like we got to be put on like an equal playing field. And that's only going to come through reparations. And until that happens, I think we're going to see the trash behaviors. It's that welfare, feminism, and the crack era dealt major damage to our culture, which is why it's so dysfunctional today. But that's a long story. I don't want to get into that right now. I agree. I know welfare was a thing. The men had to leave the houses because you weren't going to get any of that money if you had a man in the house. Feminism, that's just not something I rock with. And then the crack era, I remember the impact just when I was a little girl of what it had just within my family and uncles and things, being addicted to it and going in and out of prison, as a result of using crack. So I agree, there's a lot of things that contributes to the state that we are in as a culture. We got work to do. One thing I will say, I don't think it's the answer is Black men and women just choosing to just leave our community altogether and just go and just mix in with other cultural groups. I don't believe that's the answer. I think now more than ever is a time where we should band together and try to figure this thing out. But that's not what we're doing. Everybody's against each other. And I don't see any signs of that changing. I can only hope. I can only hope that, the generations to come will there'll be some type of change with the mentality and how they perceive things, how they like to see things look. To me, I guess as more and more generations go, it's becoming further and further removed from, say, the Black men and women seeing examples of marriage. So I believe I heard like one day they was like, most people aren't going to get married because we're probably at like 50% collectively, just out of everybody, just people in general on the, I don't know, in America or on the planet, but just 50% of people being married. I've heard before where it's believed that some believe that in the future, like maybe like 20, 30 years from now, it might be down to like 20, 30% of people being married. Like people are moving more and more away from the idea of being married. And I'm seeing that, like I said, just with the talks, the dialogue that, that I'm hearing on YouTube, that I don't hear a lot where people are pushing marriage. So I can believe that. Why do you think we're at the bottom economically? And what do you mean by a reparation? I think we're at the bottom because our network is very low. Are you familiar with Tone Talks? He goes, Tone Talks and Yvette Carnell. But Tone Talks, he goes into stats a lot. And he pulls that data and it just shows like where we are and how much we're worth. And that's what I mean. Like we don't have, Black people collectively don't have money in savings account. Black people collectively are living paycheck to paycheck. Black people collectively don't have generational wealth that can set their children up. Black people collectively don't have the money to pay for their children to go to college, which is why most kids who are attending college is relying on some type of like financial aid or maybe scholarships. Black people don't have money. We don't have money. We have debt. We have children, and we don't have money. How do you make things happen, make things change? How do we make our communities better? You don't have money. Those things cost. And a lot, our celebrities, as we see, they kind of, live in their nice little neighborhoods, but they're not really in large numbers, really pouring in money like that into communities as far as to improve them, to build hospitals and grocery stores and banks. You're not seeing that. You hear talked about as though it's sounding nice. And what I mean by reparations, I mean as far as with the government acknowledging that the white man had a significant head start above the Black man, just from a wealth level. If you look up and look and see what the average, with the net worth of your, or what can I say, the white man, what does his money look like versus the Black man? That's what I'm talking about. Like we're not even in the game. We need, what they say, cut the check. We need a check cut. No, I meant, what do you think is the cause of us being at the bottom economically? Because we were given all that free labor. We weren't getting paid. We had been working, so we weren't getting paid. And then as we were working, when I say we, as far as the slaves working, the white man was getting rich off of that all that work that the Black man and woman was putting in the field with the crops and them selling it. So that's why we're at the bottom. Because think about it, like if you plant all those crops and then the white man selling it, making money off of the work that you're doing, that's what I'm talking about. So they made money off of the fruits off of our labor, but we weren't getting paid for that. But they were getting rich because of it. So from going back then, just imagine we putting in that work, not getting money, they getting riches. We never caught up. There was never a chance for us to catch up. So that's why it's talk of, as far as reparations with cutting a check, because you just put it in your mind as though when I say cut a check, you paying us for all that labor that we did that we didn't get paid for. Imagine you going to work for 18 years and you didn't get paid and they need to cut you back payment, a check for all them hours you put in. And you like, where my check at? You done pay me for these hours, these hours, these hours. So that's when I say reparation, because it's like we weren't getting paid, but the people who we were putting in that work for, they was making money. They were getting paid, but we weren't. So from there, it's just, we've always been at the bottom because we collectively as a cultural group never caught up. So that's what I mean by that, if that makes sense. Like, we never caught up. It wouldn't even be possible for us to catch up when when they were that far in advance of us when it came to, money. How would it even be possible to get? Like, I don't even know what that would look like. I think that's why the reparations is such a big thing, because it's like we can never get caught up to have our money look like theirs because of all those years of when they took advantage and we were just working for free and they weren't paying us for what we should have been getting paid. Like today, when you work for someone and they're paying you for your labor, and I guess for the most part, you're like, okay, I can pay my bills. I'm good. I can go buy. That wasn't the case back then. It was like, you ain't getting paid no money. They providing you, I guess, the roof over your head, wherever you was sleeping at, but you wasn't like getting like money in your pocket. You were being forced to work for free. And then when the time came where they did, when slavery was no longer legal, then it's like, okay, when people did start getting paid, how much was that? I'm sure it was pennies on the dollar. Like, it still was nothing in comparison to the amount of money that Black people had made for these white men. They were leaps and bounds above us when it came to finances. We were used. And we never got fair compensation for that. It's always been talked about over the years. What is that? With that 40 acres and a mule thing? Was that something that was promised to the Black person that they never got? Like, we never got anything. So here, fast forward today in 2021, we still talking about reparations. We still talking about back pay. Basically, let's look at reparations as back pay. We still talking about back pay. If you want to break it down like that, we still talking about, look, you ain't paid me for all them hours I worked, period. Like, I need my check. So that's what I mean by when I say we're economically at the bottom. Like, I'm not seeing any signs of them cutting any check. We've been getting with the stimulus, but that's something like, it hasn't been. It seemed like you see other cultural groups, get taken care of, where they're singling out, like, say, Native Americans, or who else have they singled out? You may hear them single out things for the Hispanic culture, like Mexican. Like, you just don't really hear them single out anything for Black people. It's like, when it comes to us, it's lumped with something else. But you'll see, the government single out other cultural groups with doing things for them based on what they've presented to be their needs. And the government has listened. But when it comes to us, we're always just put on the back burner. Oh, we can't do it right now. We don't have the money. But it's like, conveniently, with other cultural groups, the money is. Slavery in 1863, 100 years later, the average Black household network was around 4,000. The average household network was around 10,000 plus. Now the average Black household has 17,000, and the average white household have 170,000. I also think that we started to experiencing that setback when Black men were, left the household for whatever reason, like when the crack era happened, and then when Black men had to try to figure out what type of employment they were going to get. Because remember, there was a time where like certain things like trades and things were in the high schools and things like that, and they removed those things. So a lot of Black men, their work was like from trades and things. that they learn, things that you can do with your hands. And those things, those skills, those things were like removed from the opportunities to learn those things started being removed from the schools. So Black men weren't really going to college like that. Like it's just like, because they were able to rely on, okay, well, I'm just going to do this, what my grandfather did, what my dad did. And it was more of that physical labor work. Whereas, over the years, women thought process was, oh, okay, I'm going to go to college. So then when suddenly those jobs, those labor jobs and those opportunities weren't there because there was other means of whatever the government decided to do as far as we getting people to do those jobs, or the Black men stopped learning those skill sets because the opportunities got removed from the schools for them to learn those skill sets. I just remember even just when I was in school, the certain classes and things that were available that today, and I graduated in 99, that aren't available today. Like, so it's just layers to what happened with us, as far as with the decline of, the monies, and the progress that we are seeing as far as with the monies within the household, just the setbacks that we've endured. But when you see a gap of 17,000 versus 170,000, that's like a big gap. How do you catch up to that? I don't know how many hours you got to put in on the clock to catch up to that. The disparity increased as we got further away from slavery. So how could slavery be the sole reason behind our impoverished community? I think it's a comment. I think it started with slavery, but it's the other variables that came into place. I think when after slavery, there was other ways that I feel like the government used to hold down the Black community. Like, okay, a lot of them weren't in support of, okay, freeing slaves. So it's like you find other ways to suppress the Black people because you still don't like them. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to suppress them in this area. I'm going to impact, them having skills in this certain way. I just feel like it was just a lot of strategic type stuff happening from a systematic level that impacted our communities. It's it's like the government, or quote unquote the white man, had to find other ways to hold us down. Like, I feel like over the years there's been an intent to keep Black people suppressed, to not have Black people reach their levels. It's not by chance. I believe it's been intentional. So after slavery, it's like, okay, we got to find a new way. Like, I feel I'm one of those people that feel like the prison system is the new plantation. They're in there, it's mostly Black people in the prison system. They're in there getting, working for pennies on the dollar. Like I said, I just believe that there was just different ways that were found to hold our Black people down. Like, I don't feel like, I think a lot of our Black people are locked up over stuff that people of other cultural groups have done, but didn't get that much time for. Like, it's not about, okay, Black person did something bad, I'm sending them away. It's about the sentencing. It hasn't been fair. Black man rob the liquor store, 20 years of life. The white man robbed the liquor store. Okay, we'll give him 10. You see? So it hasn't lined up, and that's just throwing out an example on the top of my head, but it just hasn't lined up with the expectations for the Black man in comparison to the expectations on other cultural groups. So it's different reasons that goes into why we're so far behind, but slavery definitely was a starting point, and then it kind of went from there. And I still feel like only how we will ever be on a semi-equal playing field is with reparations. Yeah, I just cut the check. I don't hold my breath on ever receiving it. I don't live my life with waiting for what somebody's going to do for me, but I do feel that that's what it's going to take for us to even get in the game and to even start building our communities. Even this, like, I'm a parent. Like, I see the difference with the quality, the amount of money, the resources that goes into the schools based on the geographical locations. The schools in our communities don't get as much resources as the schools in, the predominantly white communities. I see it. I've seen it for years. Like, I see it. It's obvious. I have conversations. I hear teachers talk about it. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, I one time did a research and I was like, based on the number of kids, what I found was that the schools that had more non-Black students, or in particular more Black students, had more kids who received free lunch, that were on part of the free lunch program, or who received, paid the reduced lunch fee, and the test scores were lower. And in the schools that were predominantly white, they had kids that had fewer, that didn't rely on the free lunch program, and they had higher test scores. Like, you see it. Like, I kept going to different schools, and everyone, if you seen that the school was predominantly Black, you seen the scores were lower. You seen the rankings were lower. It was a real thing. Like, we don't get the money, we don't get the resources in our community as other cultures. So as I say, it boils down to money. It boils down to money. It's a systematic thing. What they call systematic slavery. Like all this is systematic. Like, it's layers to it, and it is what it is. There's a lot of talking points to it. We can go on and on, but I still stand by, like, economically we're behind, and we're behind because of a systematic issue. Because we're behind, it's too great of a gap. To me, it's apparent that we're dealing with systematic racism here when you see the gap that large. Like I said, how many back paid hours do they owe? It's just, they got a head start on us, and we never caught up. And we've had, the things you've pointed out, AABM, setbacks along the way. So if they already had a head start, and then we have hit setbacks, we really getting further back. Like, we really getting further back. So, but I ask everyone, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when I go live. And yeah, I just want to hear what you got to say. It's been a nice live, nice conversation. I learned a lot. And I hope you did too. And until the next broadcast, peace.